Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I'm your host, Mike. Joining me this evening to talk about Star Wars Visions is anime master, Golgo13 from Golgo13's Anime 101. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mike. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing well. I hope you are.
Oh, yeah. Living the dream, doing the YouTubes, having a lot of fun. Thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you for coming. If there's anyone to talk about anime with, well, it's Golgo13. Please go check out his channel. I do have the link down in the description below for anyone who's curious, but he offers a lot of great information on anime. If you're new to anime like I am, you'll learn one thing or another about anime, and you'll even find out about anime shows that you will enjoy, movies that you'll enjoy, and some to avoid too.
Oh, yeah. There are going to be shows that are not for everybody. That's for sure. But yeah, my goal is to help everybody get into anime that wants to get into it, find something that works for them. So there's lots of different varieties of it, and once you find it, go watch it and enjoy it.
Yes, sir. So let's get underway here with our overall thoughts on Star Wars Visions. First, let's start off with The Duel. The Duel was brought to us by Kamikaze
Duga.
Duga. Yeah, I was hoping I was saying it right. And I am going to apologize in advance in case I mispronounce some of these names. Not doing it on purpose. But first, let's talk about The Duel.
Mm-hmm.
What are your overall thoughts on The Duel?
The Duel, while short, it is in and of itself a masterpiece, but a flawed masterpiece. And here's what I mean by that. To those that are not familiar with a lot of Japanese culture and or some of the filmmakers and the styles of filmmakers, this would look like a quintessential samurai movie, and that's what it was going for. It has all the elements of traditional Japanese cinema, samurai duels, a Ronin outsider coming to protect a village. And for the most part, it is really good, but there are certain things that are tweaked or changed specifically for an American audience. Specifically, it had to do with the angles at which things were, let's say, the camera angles that were shot at. Not a standard style that is typically done in Japanese cinema, but is more done in U.S. cinema. So there was some placation to that, or some changes for the U.S. audience, as opposed to it being primarily for a Japanese audience. But unless you knew about that or knew what to look for, you wouldn't really know. The way that I've decided to deal with this is two sides: my Star Wars brain, my Star Wars fan brain, and then my anime brain. From the Star Wars side, yeah, this was absolutely awesome. It was so enjoyable, such a great story. From the anime side, this one was also that I really liked, even with those flaws in that the style of the animation is very unique. There's only one other show that I can think of that does this pencil sketched style, and that was Afro Samurai. But overall, it's a top notch episode. Probably the top one. If not, it's definitely number two, one or two. This one is in that class.
And what I liked about it, again, being new to anime, is, just the story, about this lone stranger rolling into town and having to free these villagers from invaders who are trying to take over, trying to take everything that they own for purposes. And the main villain, I know a lot of people have a gripe with the umbrella saber, but doing my research, I found that to be very intriguing.
Yeah. Well, the umbrella is it's a very Japanese cultural thing, and in other mediums, yeah, the umbrella has been used for things other than being an umbrella. So having it be an accessory to the lightsaber to help with defense against repeating blasters like we saw makes perfect sense. All of those people that poo-pooed on it, I'd say you need to take a step back, look at the culture at which this came from, and think about it. When we first saw Darth Maul back in 1999 have basically the bow staff type of lightsaber, I can hear the purists of purists going, "What the hell was that? Why would they do that? That's dumb." Same type of deal with this. This is something that we've got to be mindful of and be willing to expand our mind to accept that yes, that is something that is a possibility. And in the world of lightsaber combat and lightsaber defense, why not have extra, take your main saber, put it in, and then have it split off into other slightly smaller ones and be able to do what she did to defend herself against, heavy repeater blaster fire.
Hmm.
So, yeah, to me it made perfect sense.
And even when the Ronin and the Sith Lord were battling on that log, I could hear a little bit of John Williams in the music score, because that's also another thing that I enjoyed about this anthology series. It seemed like the music score for each and every episode seemed to take inspiration from John Williams' work, and that to me is a big part of the storyline as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there is, it has that tone, it has that feel. It's not overly omnipresent like it is in others, but when the Sith Lord comes out, you can start hearing basically the chanting in the background. That is distinctly Japanese. And the show that sticks out to my mind that does a similar type of thing was Ghost in the Shell, the opening sequence. The the song that was done for it was actually it's actually a Japanese wedding song that had been adapted to the opening of Ghost in the Shell. But that's the same type of thought process and same feel that I had with that. But the score on this was great. There are two things that this one lacked that upon first inspection you're not going to see, but on consequent screenings and having people, my own Koro senseis, come to me and say, "Hey, in traditional Japanese cinema, traditional anime, there are a few other elements that are typically there that weren't there in this, and I think they could have incorporated it better, like the spirituality aspect, or like at the very end with the death at the shrine. We There could have been more to that, more of the spirituality, not only the people there, but of the basically of this gray Sith or gray Jedi. We just don't have enough there. We needed more, and this episode could have stood to be a little longer, maybe have a little more backstory, um, more detailed explanation before things really kicked up a notch. It's just, as I said, but in and of itself, it's really really good, and it is perfection compared to most of the others. But it's missing just that little extra piece that could have been there had they had the time.
I agree with you. I mean, there were some things I still wanted to find out about this Ronin. Where did he come from? How did
Yeah,
these, come upon this planet, come upon this village? And honestly, I would really like to see Disney take the initiative. Not that I'm saying they will, but I would like them to take the initiative and actually make this into an extended series.
yeah, absolutely. Most of these can and should be more drawn out. If they're gonna do another anthology thing, they need to make it to where instead of being only 13 to 22 minutes, they need to be either a full half hour show or a full hour show to be able to do all of them justice. And it's an interesting thing when you think of the Jedi; they're more like Ronins as opposed to samurais. Whereas with
Mhm.
George Lucas, I know that he was heavily inspired by the samurais of old, but they serve a master. Whereas the Jedi, they do, but they don't. They're more autonomous. They're more like a Ronin, more like how he is, the Ronin in this episode. But yeah, his lightsaber style and combat and everything is complete samurai, Japanese swordplay, sword styles, carrying the two different swords on the belt. You name it, it's very traditional in that aspect.
And one of the things I liked about the episode, and this was near the end of the episode, is when he cuts open the lightsaber and takes out the kyber crystal, goes to add it to his collection, and then gives it to that young boy that we come to find out was posing as the tribal leader earlier in the episode.
Yeah, that's he gave it to him to ward off evil spirits. That is definitely very influenced by traditional Japanese culture and in their belief systems, having items that have been blessed to help ward off or invite spirits. But yeah, overall, it's a great episode. Definitely worth watching. It's worth watching again and again. The the Japanese language version of it is great. The English subtitled or the English dubbed one is actually really good with this one. So either way, you can't go wrong, and it's worth the watch.
No, you can't. I do highly recommend it. If I were to give it a rating, best out of 5, it's a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Okay, now let's go ahead and move on. Let me just bring it up here real quick. Next, we have Tatooine Rhapsody. Let me just pull it up.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. Go ahead and explain the basis of this episode.
The basis of this episode is that you have a former Jedi. We're never really told if he was a full Jedi or a Jedi Padawan, but he's running from the Clone Wars, obviously during Order 66. He meets this slug who is part of the Hug clan named Gee, and then you have Lan and what was her name? Now I'm blanking on it.
Yeah,
Um,
the droid,
the
basically a
droid,
rock and roll droid.
yeah, but you have these band of outsiders and band of lone people who come together to what do they do? Form a band. Even their little droid V5, and they start singing a song at this one concert. Boba Fett comes along and takes Gee because he's wanted by Jabba the Hutt, and Jay tries to interfere. Unfortunately, he can't save his friend Gee, and I don't know. I'm sure it sounds that way in my voice, but this was the first episode I just wasn't feeling.
It's different, and the thing about it is the person that directed this has their background is in music videos. And one way that this was explained to me is if you wanted to watch this, you could have just gone and watched a Beck music video from back in the day. But as far as the story goes, it is different. It's very rare that you have either a Jedi Knight, a Jedi Padawan. I think he was a Padawan who during either Order 66 or that would have been during 66 because it was Boba Fett and not Jango Fett that went after him. He escapes with his life, meets up with Gee, gets into the band, and basically shuns the way of the Jedi, if for no other reason self-preservation. But it looks like to him that this is more the calling that fit him. And I know that there are some people that are like, once you join the Jedi Order, it's very rare for them to turn away or just to drop it all cold turkey right then and there. Well, if you got Order 66 going, you want self-preservation, this is something that you're going to do. There are other Jedi's that went and did everything they could to hide themselves from the Emperor and from Vader. And what did he do? He joined a band and became the lead singer and learned how to play guitar.
And what was interesting is that his lightsaber actually is damaged when he falls, and he turns it into a microphone. But at one point, when he's trying to go after Boba Fett and rescue his friend Gee, he tries to use it, but it malfunctions because it's still damaged.
Yeah, that makes that aspect of it's a little different. But then again, why not? This is in somebody's mind. If it's going to be, if you're going to turn away from the Jedi Order and not live that life anymore, the lightsaber is no good to you, and even with it damaged. So he did what he wanted to do. He turned it into a microphone, so that way he could be the rock star that he now thinks that that's his destiny and what he could be. And then when they go and help their friend out on Tatooine, do a show to Jabba. Jabba is a lot of things, but the thing that I see about him, besides being a slug, is if you pay him, he'll leave you alone. It's when you don't pay him or when you don't give him his cut, that's when he sicks Boba Fett on you. But
Hmm.
he's not entirely heartless. And the same with Boba Fett, he's not heartless. They're still living beings and things like that. Like with the Jabba, from what I remember of the Phantom Menace, it looked like he had a slug wife, even though he probably had harems all over the place because of his position.
Hmm.
But he still has family, and that family connection is shown through with this. They perform on the show, they get the crowd to chant one more song, and then he basically dares Jabba, hey, if you want to make more money than what you'll then basically if you want to make money, become our sponsor. Don't kill your nephew or whoever it is. Let us tour. You'll be the sponsor. You'll make money. And like any good businessman, he saw a golden opportunity and took it. Plus, with Boba Fett, saw a side to him that we typically don't see. He seems to like rock music. And why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
And to be honest, I didn't care for this episode in the English dub, but I actually preferred it in the Japanese dub. And I wish I had watched it in both languages before I did my review, because when I did my review, I only did it after watching the English dub. But
Yeah. Yeah. The English one and this one's a little harder. Once again, mainly because the characters or the people that dubbed them don't speak Japanese. Whereas in the duel, any character that was distinctly a Japanese character, they actually got Japanese Americans or people that speak Japanese, understand Japanese, and can understand the influxes and the emphasis points to then do the dubbing. And because they know what they're listening to or how it's supposed to sound, those dubs were better than the ones where people, like for this one, where none of them are Japanese, they could just use any English actor they wanted or an English speaking actor, and they just don't have that same level of understanding in it, and it comes through and it shows. The animation style is definitely more kid like, but then again, Studio Colorado, that's what they do, and it's a comedic style, very common in all the various comedies that they do. But this is one that I had fun with, and it has grown on me a bit, but definitely not perfect.
definitely not perfect. And to be honest, I'm in agreement with you. It's one that, again, in my initial review after watching it, I wasn't too crazy about it, but it is one that after multiple viewings, it does start to grow on you.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and that's what
And
these are supposed to be. They're supposed to be fun.
yeah, and if you notice in the English dub, it was Joseph Gordon-Levitt who provided the voice of Jay.
Yeah, and Horatio Sands, I think, was the one that did the slug or Gee.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
for those unfamiliar with Horatio Sands, he's a former member of Saturday Night Live.
so yeah,
Well,
it's a decent episode. I'd give it a 3.
with this one, first initial viewing, it was 2.5 for me, but now I'm gonna be on the same level as you. It's a 3.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good one. It's worth watching at least once. Watch it with the kids; they'll have fun with it.
Yeah. Okay, let me bring up the next one. Now, this is one where my opinion has not changed,
Hmm.
both after watching the English dub and the original Japanese dub, and it's the twins. No matter which language I listened to, I still didn't care for this one.
Hmm.
I got too much of a sequel trilogy vibe.
Well, that's because it is it's set smack dab square in the sequel trilogy, The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. It plays it plays by those rules that were established in those movies. Yeah, go ahead. I've got a big one for this one, and I think it'll help you on a few aspects. But go ahead and tell us what you think about it.
All right. So, first of all, it starts off with another planet destroying weapon in a hyper beam that's
Hmm.
built in between two ships, and it relies heavily on a kyber crystal. And there's these two twins, Am and Kari, who are the only ones who have access to this kyber crystal. Well, Kari decides he's going to take the kyber crystal because it's too dangerous to have in the hands of the Empire or First Order, whichever side it is. It's never really explained, and his sister gets word of it. Her droid B2ON lets her know about it, and her droid's a protocol droid, and there's a confrontation on the flight
A,
deck. Go ahead.
a murderous protocol droid.
Yes, yes. And somehow, some way, and it leads you to believe that they captured someone from the resistance or they found this X-wing that's on the flight deck, and Kara actually gets in it with his droid, our duo, and they try to escape with the kyber crystal. Well, Am's not having any of it. She uses her force abilities to pull the X-wing down along with the kyber crystal, and it ends up causing the X-wing to crash. Then we have a duel between the two twins for control of the kyber crystal. One wants it, so it's not used for its intended purposes, while the other wants it for those intended purposes of destroying planets. But overall, when it came to this episode, because I was getting those sequel vibes,
Hmm.
I just couldn't enjoy it.
Excuse me, 1 second here.
Not a problem.
Okay. Yes, this is one I'm going to take two different tacks with. The Star Wars side first. Yeah, set in the sequel trilogy. Sequel trilogy can go blow itself out an airlock. Having said that, since this is set in that era, it does play by the rules that were set out by you know Jar Jar Abrams, the cinematic Antichrist, and Ruin Johnson. So within the confines of the rules of the sequel trilogy, they play in those rules. So from that aspect, it's fine. From the aspect of is it good Star Wars? No, technically it's not. One more second here, please.
Not a problem.
Now, my initial viewing of this, I had a feeling that this one was going to be once I saw that it was in the sequel trilogy era, I thought, oh, this one's going to be completely terrible. And my initial thoughts on it were, pretty down on it. But after learning more about the studio that did this, which is Studio Trigger, the show that they are most known for is called Kill la Kill. What they're known for is taking things and ratcheting up to 11 each time one upping themselves. So you'll start off with the situation. You'll have one person say, "Ha, I can do this," and then the other person will go completely off the rail and go, "Ha, I can do better than that," and does something else, and just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating and keeps going and keeps going. That's what we see here. That's what they're known for. Knowing that part about it, then it makes sense. you have the two twins, born of the dark side of the Force, raised in the dark side. This kyber crystal. One finally says that he's had enough, wants to do something about it, goes and tries to steal it. What's the first thing we see? Him walking past stormtroopers, them trying to fire on him, him blocking it and throwing it right back in their face. What does she do? Shows up in the docking bay with two ATSTs and a whole legion of stormtroopers. What does he do? He has our duo go get an X-Wing powered up and starts blasting the crap out of all of them. So what does she do? She pulls him back with the Force to pull the kyber crystal out of the X-Wing. So what does he do? They have a struggle fight for the kyber crystal, eventually splitting it. So what does she do? She takes the bigger piece, throws it into her power armor suit that is powered by the kyber crystal, and the armor suit has multiple attachments and eventually ends up having her dual lightsabers along with 4 other arms that can then do either basically lightsaber whips and or can be hardened into lightsabers. So what does he do? He takes his kyber crystal, throws it into his modified hilt that at his whim can extend itself more like into a longer bow staff. So what does she do? Goes completely crazy and then eventually loses control of the power suit. So what does he do? The only way that he can overpower her is to get on the tip of the nose of that X-Wing and have our duo throw it into light speed. That's the only way that he could overpower her enough to break the power that she had in her sabers and in that power suit to get that saber of his adjusted just right to destroy the kyber crystal holder and the crystal itself. And then once he does go to light speed, the lightsaber cuts the one ship in half. So, knowing how Studio Trigger works, this makes perfect sense. This is right up their alley. This is the type of stuff that they like to do, just the off-the-wall, completely crazy stuff that you wouldn't even dream of. And as I said, with the show that they have done, that they're most famous for, Kill la Kill, that's exactly what happens. The very first thing that happens in that show, go watch it. Two things will happen. You'll either hate it or you'll laugh yourself silly at it, at how just over the top it is. And it just keeps doing it again and again and again. So from that aspect, this is, if you're a Studio Trigger fan, this is extremely good. You'll enjoy that aspect of it. So, trying to reconcile the two, it's still not the best episode, but its stock rose tremendously in my mind. And taking into account the era that it's from, playing in the rules that were set down for it, if it's taken just at that, then it becomes like a 4 out of 5. But compared to other eras of Star Trek, no, it's got to go back down to a 3.
Yeah, and with that information, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you here on this overall thoughts episode review, is because you can bring that perspective of knowing what these studios have done in the past and what they're currently doing, something that I can't, being new to anime. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and as I said, once those things were pointed out to me, and I actually watched the first 3 episodes of Kill la Kill, it makes perfect sense. And yeah, this is the most Studio Trigger out of every. This is pretty much out of all the studios, what they're known for. This flows into them perfectly, and it's an interesting thing because they do another episode in here that, as a Star Wars piece, is way better, but as a Studio Trigger piece, is different. We'll get to that later, but
Yep.
Little foreshadowing there. Foreshadow.
Yes. So again, with this episode, if I had to give it a rating, even though my initial rating on Tatooine Rhapsody was a 2.5 out of 5 stars, this one I actually gave a 3-star rating because there were some things I did like about it. I like the fact that when Am put that piece of the kyber crystal into her suit, that it did power it up, because I would expect that from anything involving a power suit. There's got to be something that powers it to give it even greater ability.
Yep, and power suits are not out of the realm of Star Wars. You can go all the way back to Knights of the Old Republic. You had powered armor in that. So why not have a powered armor suit that's powered by a kyber crystal?
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the next image because we are going to talk about the fourth episode of this series, and that was the Village Bride. And this one, I thought this one was beautiful, and
Yes.
not understanding Japanese culture as much as I'd like, and actually looking up certain things after I watched the episode, I had a complete appreciation for this episode.
Yeah. Yeah. This is another episode that you got to take it from two different angles. And from the Star Wars angle, lot of Star Wars people really poo pooed on this one a lot. And to me, when I heard those things, I was very sad because you're absolutely right. This is a masterpiece in its own right, based upon the style of the art, the setting of the show, the calmness, the serenity of this village, and then having all of that interrupted, and what people will do to protect their village. This one is extremely traditional Japanese in terms of the feel, in terms of the village, in terms of marriage ceremonies. It not perfect, but it definitely has that feel as opposed to anything Star Wars relating to those things.
And that's what I loved about it. And you meet our two protagonists in the Explorer and the Masked Woman, and then you meet Haru and Asu, the husband and wife,
Yeah, the
and then of
betrothed.
course,
Yep.
yeah, and then you meet the sister Saru, and you learn the lengths that these people are willing to do to save their village from being invaded by these bandits. And
hmm The lengths they'll go to for love for each other, both as a eventual husband and wife, as sisters, as family overall, and then as an overall village. Yeah,
mhm.
it's got very heavy traditional Japanese undertones to the story, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's so good. You have to accept it from that side of things. If you try to take it as a Star Wars piece, it gets better at the end, but this is definitely not a Star Wars piece.
No, it's not, but I love the approach that Cinema Citrus went with it. And for anyone who's poo pooing on this episode, give it another watch. Watch it in English, watch it in the Japanese dub, and it might change your opinion.
Yeah, but yeah, it just goes to show what happens in a place like that that's on the outer rim after a war is done, because this takes place after the Clone Wars but before the Battle of Yavin. You
Hmm.
have this basically a bandit or a warlord who was able to get a hold of droids, leftover decommissioned droids that he was able to get back up and going, and has a central command station for him. So you got the ridiculousness of some of the battle droids, and then at the end, you have a reluctant warrior, a Jedi warrior who went into hiding after Order 66, trying to decide where they fit in the galaxy or what they should do. Witnessing these bandits basically say that the bride has to go with them as per an agreement with the old chief to basically save their village from being annihilated. And she's willing to do that, but you have a faction within there that's not willing to do that. And unfortunately, their plan got foiled. But having a fully trained Jedi there, and her finally deciding that running was no longer an option, and finally decided to take a stand. It's like the old saying, either stand for something or die for nothing. She decided to take a stand and made the difference. And then at the end of it, goes off to try and make a difference in the rest of the galaxy.
Hmm. And I love the fact that the explorer who used his sniper rifle to attack some of the battle droids at last resort takes off his helmet, throws it down, and then it actually rockets itself into the bandit ship, destroying the ship and also destroying the control mechanism for the battle droid. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, very. It's always good to have all the pieces that you have a backup function just in case something goes on, and that was a very smart thing to do. Plus, I must say that the lightsaber that the Jedi had,
Hmm.
I like I like the katana shaped or styled lightsabers. Don't care what anybody else says. Don't care if it's you know out there. I just prefer that. They're just so much smoother, sleeker. They look deadlier. So
Yeah,
I
and
like it.
when she first ignited the saber, I'm all, that's cool because I love the fact that she took out the hilt, and when it activates, it actually pops up a little bit, and then you see the saber beam. I mean, I
Yeah.
just appreciated this episode. I know I'm stuttering right now, coming up with words, but I really just appreciated this episode for what it was. A great story,
Hmm.
a great beginning, middle, and end. And it was about standing up for what you believe in.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that it was lacking in this because of time was more of the spiritual aspects of the who's, the whys, the whats, and the hows that they were doing things to prepare for the wedding. You know, the the groom carrying the bride up the mountain, the the whole idea of trying to change course of a river, the why you would do that. That part's missing. It's hinted at a little bit, but it's not expounded upon like it normally would be had they had enough time. But overall, yeah, this one I really liked. I give it a 4.5 on both sides, the anime side and the Star Wars side. So
Yeah, and I was the same in my review. It's a 4.5. It deserves it. It deserves a rewatch. It deserves better praise than it's actually getting from the fandom.
yeah, yeah, it does. But the next one is a very interesting one.
Yes, it is. I'll bring that up here in just a moment. All right. And I have it here. The Ninth Jedi. What are your
Yes.
thoughts?
Well, this one is done by Production IG. And for anybody that knows who they are, they've been around a long time. But the thing that I know them for is for Ghost in the Shell, the movie, the TV shows, everything. That's their baby. And this oozes what anime is supposed to be from them. This is perfect for them. And as far as the Star Wars side, once again, we're taking place in the sequel trilogy era, but we're past it all. Who knows how far past it, but far enough. Uh, it's This is the other one that seems to be the most popular between it and the duel for the top spot, and yeah, there are lots of reasons for it. But why don't you go ahead and give your thoughts on it, and then I'll expound upon a few things.
All right. Well, I'm just going to come out and say it. This is one that deserves its own series run, especially with the cliffhanger it leaves us at the end. It needs a full series run. We need to
Yes.
find out where they're going next, who they're going to encounter next. I mean, you have this girl named Kara. She's out there looking for her father after her father's taken by these bandits because there's this Margrade up in this asteroid in this Jedi temple who sent out a message to 7 Jedi to try to reform the Jedi Order. Well, individuals come, one of them by the name of Ethan, but there are a few other individuals who we come to find out, and we're given hints that these folks aren't on the up and up just by the animation and the facial expressions by some of them that these these other individuals, nah, they're only there for one thing, and that's to stop the reformation of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. The whole concept of a lightsaber smith, no different than a swordsmith. This one, it sounds like it takes place far enough to where most everything about what a Jedi was lost. Not necessarily people that were lost in the ways of the Force or having that connection to the Force, but not being able to build a lightsaber for themselves or not having the knowledge to be able to do that. Well, this particular story, the the child there, her father is a lightsaber smith who was commissioned to build these lightsabers for these people once they showed up. The interesting thing about them is that these sabers and these kyber crystals can sense how you are. Hence, if you have no real connection to the force or no real sway to either the light side or the dark side, you get what she has there, basically a colorless saber, or for for lack of a better term, a gray Jedi saber. Whereas when the sabers were eventually delivered and given out and they lit them up, you knew immediately who and what their intentions were beyond the subtle visual clues. It became straight up obvious. And then of course the I forget the name. What was the name of the person that was running that temple or that was living there and invited everybody?
Margot Juru, I believe.
Yes, he is an extremely powerful being who is very strong in the force and was able to eventually handle them with the help of the one person that did show up that did have the light side affinity, and they were able to convert one person that had been a go along to get along gang type person. And then
Mm-hmm.
she shows up there with all of them and has to go into combat again with them, and then her color on her saber gets established as
Yep.
green, so as a Jedi consular. So
And, and I really like that aspect. I love the aspect that whoever is wielding the lightsaber, it changes to the color that is best suited for that user because of
yes,
their connection with the force. I love that aspect. I loved, finding about Haru and why he sent out this message to try to reform the Jedi Order because the galaxy's in chaos. It's at
yeah,
war.
it's you have to have someone who's willing to go around and basically be the arbiter for people to
Hmm.
bring their issues to have to bring the stability to the overall galaxy. Maybe not a perfect stability, but at least making the attempt at it. Whereas without the Jedi or without somebody within an order that could do that, then yeah, you have more chaos than what they were wanting. But it was also interesting to see that the length of the lightsaber could also be adjusted based upon your strength in it. Because with her, it would bounce up and down a little bit there at first until she got the hang of it, and then she had a
Hmm.
standard length one, for her body frame, like we have in this photo.
Yeah.
But from the Star Wars standpoint, yeah, if we're gonna have it, this is far enough past all that stuff, and it's its own thing. This needs a full series, and it needs to be done by Production IG. They can do it.
Yes.
This is easily a 4.5, if not closer to a 5, because of those things.
For me, this episode was a 5, and if anyone from Disney is listening, let Production IG do a full series. Stay out of it. Let them tell the story in their own unique way, and then let us all see it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it was really good. It's worth
Yep.
multiple views.
Oh yeah. And that's going to bring me to the next one. Let me just pull it up here.
Episode 6,
Uh-huh.
TOB1.
Uh yeah. Yeah. I'm sure I'm sure I just gave it away
Well, you're not
as
the only
to
one that has that feeling towards it, so this is another one that I'll have to give some explanation and some additional information to. But go ahead.
TOB1, Astro Boy or for me, when I'm watching it, even though I was aware of Astro Boy, I'm thinking, no, all of a sudden I want to pop in a classic Mega Man game, whether it's the original Mega Man or Mega Man X, and go ahead and play that game because that's the kind of vibe I was getting from it.
Bingo.
You have you have TOB1 and his master, Professor Mitaka, or as I was calling him in my review, Dr. Light.
Yep. Yep. Spot on.
And he's able to receive upgrades like Mega Man. I mean, here in the screenshot, he gets an upgrade by a droid attaching itself, so it's like Mega Man using Rush Jet or any of the Robot Master's weapons. So even in my review, I said, "You got droid upgrade,"
Hmm. Yeah.
and it was too cutesy for me.
Well, the studio that does it, that's what they do. They do kids programs. Studio Science Saru. And yes, it's very heavy on the Astro Boy, and most definitely Mega Man up and down. You basically more or less this is Mega Man, but it takes an interesting concept with droids in this universe. Are they as limited as they've traditionally been seen? Well, with this particular android, that's not the case. He's more of a Pinocchio type figure. He knows what he is. He knows what he wants to be, but trying to get to that point is hard because of what he is. But he's willing to put in the work and to do it and to learn. And then, with his creator, he imparted in him everything he needed to survive as far as the knowledge, but then also with the love, the discipline, the willingness to stick it out, the ability to not dream too far ahead, to focus on where he is, what he is doing. He imparted lessons from Yoda, who most likely taught him. And at
Hmm.
the end, we realize that yes, he is a outcast Jedi member who eventually
Yep,
does get hunted by the what are they called?
Inquisitor.
The Inquisitors. But this does raise the question: who who are the only beings that have connection to the Force? If the Force is it surrounds us, it binds us, it's everywhere, it's in all things, in the trees, in the rocks, in the sand, in you, in me, in everything. Why couldn't a sentient being like a droid, designed to maneuver and to move, to think and to feel like a human, why couldn't that sentient being tap into the Force or be taught how to? Be taught the ways of lightsaber combat, be taught all of these things. No different than like with Mega Man. When he first starts off, he's pretty pathetic, but as soon as he starts beating certain bosses and builds upon his abilities, he becomes the blue bomber, a robot stomping machine.
And
Same thing with this, and
y-
I
yeah,
like it.
because just like with Toby, Mega Man started off as Dr. Light's assistant. Well, Dr. Wily ends up taking Cut Man and Electric Man and Iceman and the other robot masters, and Dr. Light has no choice but to upgrade Mega Man to combat those robot masters and help save the world. And of course, then it
Yep.
goes on for game after game after game, but they still kept it fun. They still kept it interesting. I'm sure if I rewatch this episode again one of these days, I'll have a better appreciation for it. But first initial viewing of it, I felt it was too cutesy, too kiddie. But you
That was
telling
the
me,
audience for this one. This
yeah,
this one was not for us. This one was for our kids. If you've got kids anywhere from 6 to 12, this one's for them. This is
yeah,
purely up their alley, and it has a great set of morals, a great conclusion to the story, and it basically gives the old adage of never give up, never surrender.
mm-hmm. Ah, nice reference there. Love
Oh yeah,
Galaxy Quest.
one of the great movies from 1999, Galaxy Quest.
If I can only go back and see that in the theater again.
Yeah, I wish we could, but probably not going to happen. Not in our lifetimes.
No. All right, let's go ahead and move on here. All right.
Now, this episode is the flip side of the coin for Studio Trigger, and so we'll dive into it. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on it first.
The Elder, the most Star Wars feeling, and basically the most Star Wars story of all the anthology stories that we got here in Visions. You have a master and his apprentice. The master is getting vibes from the Force. They end up going down on this planet and they speak to these villagers who aren't known for being the most outgoing of people. They're very shy. They inform the Jedi Master and his apprentice that this elderly man came through their village recently on a ship. And from there, the master and apprentice go their separate ways in search of the elder. The apprentice engages with the elder at one point after a large beast is killed. And unfortunately, the apprentice is no match for this elder, which leads us to the master having to engage the elder and ultimately kill the elder. And the reason being is because this elder is a Sith Lord.
Or was thought to be a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
Pretty much is, but as far as the story goes, they couldn't get anything conclusive on it because of what the elder had planned in case he was defeated. But
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely right. This is the most Star Wars out of all of them. And actually, it's probably more Star Wars than a lot of the movies because it does focus on the very basics, like what we had from episode 1. We have the master, we have the apprentice, the Jedi Knight, and the Padawan. Then you throw into the mix an old guy who had been around, seen everything, climbed to the top, but because of age and infirmity, trying to hold on to it, he can't.
Mm-hmm.
The Jedi Master imparts many important lessons to his apprentice. Once again, focusing on where they are, what they are doing, not looking to the future, not seeking adventure or excitement. The only reason why that they even stopped at this planet is because the master felt the disturbance in the force and was like, something's not totally right here. And he had been to all of these places before, so he knows the local customs. You know, this is set in the High Republic era. And my understanding about it is the Jedi are of such strength that they can go to the Outer Rim territories and basically do what they're supposed to do. Now, the rest of it's pretty much trash in how they do things. You know, my understanding is they have a tendency to try and take override the local governments, basically what the Empire does. But this particular guy is like, no, I am out here patrolling to make sure that everyone is at peace. Having this disturbance, going to the planet, teaching his Padawan the very valuable lesson of no matter how powerful you are, you will eventually lose that power. And the only reason that he was able to defeat the elder was because the elder was older and had lost a lot of what he had. Because what the master had overall wasn't overly that impressive. He was a good master, but it sounded like the way that they described what the elder could have done, as he put it, had I been your age, he would have completely annihilated him without issue or hesitation. And I believe that. And that's the type of thing that happens within certain Japanese stories. There's always somebody older, wiser, but can't keep up with you. And then you get to that point where your skills are starting to diminish. There's always somebody younger. There's always somebody stronger. There's always someone that is more clever than you. The trick is knowing these things, knowing your limitations, knowing when to stop, and knowing when to go full out. And that's what happens with this. The master has to go save his apprentice because his apprentice could not keep up with the elder because of his lack of experience. That's when the experience factor overrode everything. But if you get somebody that's closer to their prime, who has the abilities that you once had but don't have anymore, even with you being as strong in the force as you are, you're going to lose. And that's what happened here.
Yep, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. It teaches you a life lesson.
Yes. Yeah, if if the High Republic was more like this, it wouldn't suck. It would actually be good. But unfortunately, we know how that goes. Yeah, Geode,
Yeah,
bring the vessel here. As stupid as that is. But
very stupid.
yeah. Now that's the Star Wars side. And that as far as the story part of it goes, yeah, that's a 5 on the Star Wars side.
Oh yeah.
On the anime side, it's very well done, but this is done by Studio Trigger, and this was a complete opposite of what they've done in their other one and what they have traditionally done. So it was a little weird to see them tempered like this. They did a good job with it. They basically had the look and the feel closer to what a production IG does. But knowing that it was Studio Trigger, if you're a Studio Trigger fan, then it becomes a lost opportunity. And that's how it was explained to me from people that know and absolutely admire what they do. They felt that this one, at least from the anime side, didn't hold up. So
Yep. Story side, it was great. Anime side,
it's
from what you're
beautiful.
saying,
It's
it
just not what Studio Trigger does. This is probably something that should have been taken on by a different studio. So
right. I like that assessment because again, I'm brand new to anime, so I don't know all the ins and outs as far as why certain story aspects are taken, why certain drawing styles are taken. So I like hearing that.
yeah,
I
this is
enjoyed
one that
this
should be
episode.
listened to. Yeah, this one should be listened to in Japanese because once again, the with the exception of him, who was it that voiced him? Who did Big Trouble in Little China? He's in Kung Fu Panda. I can see his face, but I can't put the name. He's the only Asian person in this one. The other two are English only speakers, and you can see it
Mhm.
with the dubbing versus the traditional Japanese language on that.
I can't think of the actor's name off the top of my head right now.
I think it's James Hong or something like that. It's something like that. But he's been in tons of things over the years. Very prolific.
Yeah,
But
he's very versatile.
yeah, yeah, that he is. That is for sure.
So yeah, for this one, for me, 4.5, 5 stars. Just depending on which version you listen to, whether it be the Japanese or the English. I really enjoyed the Japanese dubbing of it over the English one, and
Yeah,
it,
yeah, this is one that should be listened to that way. Yep. James Hong. That's who does it. I was right. He's been in
okay.
everything. He's old. He was born in 1929. He's almost 100.
Well, I'm
That makes
grateful
him
he can
perfect.
still. Yeah, I'm grateful he can still, get out there and deliver lines, even if it's just from home, like a lot of voice actors do nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a good one, but it's definitely got some of its own issues from one side of things.
And that'll make me move on to our next one. Real quick, let me just get to it. Oh, there it is. Lap and Ocho. First initial thoughts on this one, I was thinking, great, we're getting a furry episode. After
Hmm.
watching the episode, my opinion completely changed. I ended up really enjoying this episode because it was all about family. The
Yep.
story says your family doesn't have to be blood. It could be anybody.
That is very true. And
Yeah.
this, out of all of them, this one has a very good Star Wars story that doesn't revolve primarily around a Jedi. This falls right in after the end of the war and the beginning of the Empire. Them trying to gain resources and promises that are made to some outlying worlds, and yeah, of course, they if you're not human or Terran, you're probably a slave, and that's what Lop was. And yeah, it's a very strong story about family, about trying to maintain those family ties, and the things and the lengths that people are willing to go to for family.
Hmm. I really enjoyed that. I mean, I come from a small family, so we're pretty close and tight knit. We mean a lot to each other.
Yeah. This one's also very traditional in the architecture style, of course the animation style, and then of course the passing down of a family relic from one generation to the next. And when you have the battle of siblings who at one time were very close, but because of something losing sight of that, and then basically becoming antagonists towards each other, it's
Yep.
the dark side has its ways, let's put it that way.
Yeah, the way the dark side corrupted Ocho, it changed her from the first time you meet her, where she's this happy-go-lucky kid who is willing to accept Lop into the family right away, and you know just help her become part of the family, to wanting what the Empire is offering and buying what the Empire is offering, and allowing that influence of the Empire to corrupt her.
Yeah. Yeah, the story elements on this, it's extremely heavily Japanese influenced, from the culture aspect, from the family aspect, from the passing down of a family relic from one generation to the next. Yeah, this one is very heavily leans into the Japanese culture and the animation tropes.
And Mr. Yasuro, the father, I liked the scene between him and Lop where he's saying he should have treated Lop better when she first came into the family, because he still viewed her as not really his daughter, but he accepted her into the family, but he feels that he should have treated her like she was his blood daughter to begin with.
Yeah, the regrets of parents, and having a blended family, and coming from a blended family, I can attest and understand all of that. So this one has a little extra meaning for me in certain
Yeah.
respects.
And I give this episode a 5 out of 5. It's one I've actually watched several times over and get
Yeah.
enjoyment out of each time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people, then once again, there are a lot of people that poo poo on it because of a furry, but at the same time, we have wikis.
Hmm.
Seriously, people, there everything about this, it is a Star Wars story. It lives within the rules of a Star Wars tale, as far as the equipment that's used, the time frame, what's going on, the use of slaves, the Empire basically strip mining everything they can because they can, and then people having it, getting enough, rising up and saying no. But even at that, when you have an uprising, you're not going to have typically you're not going to have full universal support across your whole population, and typically not even within your own family. And we see what happens when you have a child that thinks one way, thinks that they know better than their elders, and sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not, but not being able to let it go or to do what's best for the family leads to death and destruction. And this particular episode, I believe, is very poignant for the times that we live in, and it hits you pretty good. from
Yeah, it
both
does.
ends.
It
So yeah,
does, and
this one's a 4.5 out of 5 for me from both sides. So it's well worth watching again, and I highly recommend for anybody that's here listening or watches it later, take into account everything that I have mentioned here, and I believe that you'll be better off for it because you now have a little more base understanding of the whys certain things happen. You have
mhm.
a little bit of the metaphysical side, the spirituality side, as far as where the tomb of the ancestors, the handing off of the traditional weapon, and all that. Once again, this is another one that could have had more more expounding upon, and should probably also have a series ordered because it's really good.
Yeah, because it leaves it at a cliffhanger.
Yep,
You see
it does.
Ojo on top of the TIE fighter and Lop looking on, and you want to know, are they gonna, are their paths gonna cross again?
Yeah,
And what's gonna happen the next time they cross? H-
yeah. It's a really good one, and it plays well in both spheres, or at least it does better than some of the others. That's
Mhm.
appeasing both sides.
And it's one of the few that I thought was good in the English dub and the Japanese dub.
Yes, they were both very well done. But once again, they on purpose, since both of the characters, the father and the daughter, they're Japanese. So the voice actors they got that can speak English, they know how to speak Japanese, and you can tell.
Mhm.
Whereas with Lop, not necessarily so. She doesn't have to be. And if I remember correctly, the person that does voice her is not Japanese or is not Japanese American or knows how to speak Japanese and understands the nuance of the language.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see who voiced Lop, at least in the English version. But they all did a phenomenal job. I mean, I'm no
Yeah.
expert when it comes to voice acting, but listening to it in both versions, I couldn't detect a flaw in either one. There
Yeah.
wasn't a time where I'm watching and I'm thinking, they could have done this a little bit better in the English dub. They could have maybe done this a little better in the Japanese dub. At no point could I get to those thoughts.
Yeah. It's a great episode. And it's another one that gets poo-pooed on when it really shouldn't, just like The Bride. This is in that same category where it can satisfy pleasantly on both fronts. You just have to be willing to be open-minded about it.
Mhm.
Now, the
And it,
last episode, this is the one that confused me the most. But
I, I'm glad you're saying that because this is an episode where my first initial viewing, I wasn't sure what I felt about it because it had me asking questions, and it had a lot to do with Miri's background. I wanted to see more of the background and see more of the relationship between her father and uh Masago.
yeah. Yeah, it's as it was put to me, it's basically a sloppy Anakin and Padme story, which it kind of is. You have your Jedi Knight who basically worked for her father at one point, has a strong connection with her, loves her, and is drawn to go back and to try and help her reclaim her kingdom from like a stepmother or aunt or uncle or whatever that was. When I saw like, wait a minute, is that a it's supposedly it's her aunt or something like that, who also happens to be a Sith, but a very powerful Sith, an over the top powerful Sith, more powerful than even the Emperor, because there's something that that I don't remember the name of the character, but they're able to do something that Palpatine promised Anakin but couldn't deliver. This person did.
Yeah,
Like
Tuvaki basically sold his soul to the dark side,
sold the soul of the
and
devil.
yep, and through the power of the Force, they brought Miri back.
Yeah, all the visions of that he was seeing of what was going to happen. He set everything in motion. He's the one that actually did it. Not on purpose, but it was still him. Everything in this whole thing are consequences of his actions, including pledging to become an apprentice to the dark side to
Mhm.
save the woman that he loves.
Yep, and I don't know if you noticed in the credits, but one of the guides was voiced by George Takei, and this is in his first foray into the Star Wars universe. He actually voiced one of the oh gosh, separatists. Yeah, he voiced one of the
Yeah.
separatists in the Clone Wars in season one.
Yeah.
And
George is special. We'll just leave it at
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But it's good that he was able to do something like this. If you if you're known for something and really known for something, then you get known for doing other things, whether people appreciate it or not, it's irrelevant. To have an opportunity to do a voice a voice acting gig in Star Wars, you got to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, that's it. Out of all of them, the animation style is definitely different. It's not a standard looking anime as far as the what you normally expect to see from how the males are drawn to how the females are drawn. It's it's so different. And it's because of that it's so different that it threw me off as far as the look of it. And then the story and how it ended also threw me off because that's not a standard ending for a Star Wars thing. The previous one isn't necessarily a standard ending either, but that one's a to be continued, whereas this one was pretty final.
Yeah, it
You know?
pretty much told you that Tubaki is now one with the dark side, and whatever happens next, well, it's trouble for the rest of the galaxy.
Yeah, yeah, that it is. But yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it other than the architecture of everything was very traditional Japanese style, and the architecture looked great, but the character designs were just a little too different for me. And that's funny because Science Saru did this one. They're the same ones that did Toby 1. So they
Hmm.
did basically it's like with Studio Trigger doing a complete 180, doing something that they're not known for, something that they don't normally do, and it didn't work as good as it might have.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
one of the questions I had for you was, are there animes that are even done in this art style?
I'm pretty sure there are, but for the ones that I like to watch, I haven't really seen anything even close to this.
Okay.
At least not that I can recall. It's possible I have, but for what I typically like to watch, they're typically not done in this style. They're typically done in either the Lopan Ocho, the Elder, the Ninth Jedi, the Duel. They're typically done in, or the Village Bride. They're typically done in those styles. Some of the more funny ones are done closer to the Tatooine Rhapsody style, or you get a combination of them, like with My Hero Academia. It combines the realistic-ish style, and then when it wants
Hmm.
to be sillier to put emphasis, then it goes into the more cartoon-ish style, like how Tatooine Rhapsody is done for the
Okay.
emphasis points. But for the duel, the only other one that I'm aware of that's done like that is Afro Samurai, and that's not one that I've seen. So it has. I know a little bit about it, but I that's just one I'm going to have to watch and have to watch again and see. But this last episode, Akakiri, I'm not sure if I could watch it again. And if I do, I'd have to really try to pay attention to figure out what happened or the why everything ended up the way it did because it just didn't work for me as the other ones. This is one that I would give a 2 on the Star Wars front and a 2 on the anime front, at least for me.
And for me, after watching it and giving my review, it was one, I just couldn't figure out how I felt about it.
Yeah.
On one hand, I liked certain aspects of it. On the other hand, I didn't care for it. And
Yeah. That's
it's gonna be one of those things where I could watch it over and over again, and each time I watch it, my opinion's gonna be different.
yeah. Yeah, it could be. I need to watch it again and try to analyze it some more, but it's one that I'd have to really force myself to do. It's not one that I would say, "Oh yeah, I'll watch that no problem," and be, completely happy and content with. So, yeah. It is what it is. It's
Yeah.
there.
You either take it or leave it.
Pretty much. And overall, for everything, I would easily give the whole anthology put together with its unevenness a 3.5 out of 5 overall. It's definitely stronger on the Star Wars side than it is on the anime side. And one of the points I made a while ago was Star Wars needed this. And if you think of anime as a brand, anime didn't need Star Wars. So it's a little more of a one-way street. But since it does exist, it can be a gateway and a catalyst for a person that likes Star Wars, never seen anime, likes what they've done, to be able to dive into other things and then really get into some of the stuff they do. And as I said, some of it gets off the wall, but that's just how they are, and that's why I like the medium, and that's why I like most of the shows that I do is because of that.
Mhm. And I'm in agreement with you as far as it being a 3.5 out of 5. And there are certain things I'm sure as I watch more and more anime, I'll understand, you know, a whole
Yes,
lot better. But as someone who is brand new to anime and watching these, yes, there were some that I didn't care for, like TOB1 and the twins. But overall, I can see myself looking for more animes in the style of the ones I did like The Duel, The Village
absolutely.
Bride, The Ninth Jedi.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And yeah, if any of you have questions, don't hesitate to leave a comment in the section, and Michael, reach out to me, and we can definitely reply back, because I've got a back catalog and lots of recommendations that do fit into the styles, like with the Ninth Jedi or the Elder or Lapan Ocho, or uh, or the Duel even. So there's lots of options.
yes. And I want to thank you for coming on this special live edition of Pacific 4 and 4 episode review. It's great having you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I definitely appreciate your time. And yeah, now the baseball season's over, you got more free time.
Yes, I do. Now I can devote this channel to doing more episode reviews, movie reviews. I do plan on at some point having a review of Akira come out and also the Ghost in the Shell movie. And I'm trying to get my review of The Big Lebowski out. The only issue I know I'm going to face with that is Universal.
Yep. Yeah, Universal can be universally a pain.
Yes,
Yeah, it was definitely great to be with you tonight. I appreciate the invite, and you all out
you're
there, you
welcome.
all have yourself a great night. And uh, yeah, it was a lot of
And
fun. Thank you.
I'd like to have you back again one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know, and we'll get it together and we'll do it.
All right, so this is going to wrap up this live edition of Pacific 4 and 4 episode review. I want to thank everybody who watched this while it was live or watches it, you know, after the live broadcast. Thank you very much. If you like what you saw here, please give this video a thumbs up, share this video with your friends, leave a comment down in the comment section below. You can follow me on social media. And you can also subscribe to Golgo13's Anime 101. He does a live show every Saturday at 1 o'clock Eastern, and he has guests on that show where they talk different animes.
Yes, yes, we do, and it's a lot of fun. And with it being the month of Halloween, go watch some horror anime. You will thank me.
And do you mind if I put your Twitter link in the description?
Yeah, you can find me at Twitter at Golgo13_BW.
All right, I will make sure to put that in. As a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and do it now while we're live.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on, and for the show this Saturday, you need to find yourself watching Helsing and Helsing Ultimate, because it's really really good.
I will definitely look those out.
Fortunately, they're not very long, so if you have to choose one, go with Helsing Ultimate, because it does follow the manga better than the original one. But either case, you can't go wrong. It's a great story, and it's going to be the main focus of the week and the focus of the show this Saturday. So
Excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, folks. Thank you all very much. And as always, take care.
take care, everybody.